We're also live on Facebook. And so we'll give it 1 or 2 more minutes to see if we have more people join us, and then we'll get started.
It's 6:03. If you don't mind, we'll give it to 6:05 and we'll get started. Sorry about that. I had connection issues. I had to switch to another computer. So during this time of the day, sometimes it's difficult to get on. And so I'm assuming some other people might be having the same issue. So we'll give them just a few more minutes and then we'll get started. But we are live on Facebook and this session is also being recorded. All the sessions that we've had is being converted and should be on Metro channel as well. I need to send them all of that because we do have situations where you have other council members that are joining the conversation. And so for Sunshine's sake, all of that needs to be part of the public record, which is why we're recording. We're also Facebooking live, and we also make sure that we get it to the Metro network. So Ms. Bedell, good to see you. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We can hear you now. I can hear you now.
John Campbell.
Hi, John. Hi, John. Well, I'm just about to begin a Zoom meeting.
All right, it's 6:05. Thank you all for joining and taking the time to be part of this conversation. This is our third and final Zoom meeting. What we wanted to do is make sure that we give everyone the opportunity to be a part of this conversation and to be able to give people the opportunity to ask questions and be a part of it. So this is the third and final one. People will have the opportunity to also go before the Planning Commission on the 22nd. But we wanted to make sure that at least as a committee that we did all up to our words and make sure that we complete the process that we had set forth. So what we wanted to do today basically is just have a conversation. I'm also thinking based on the number that I have on here, I might actually call on my committee members to be able to talk about why they're part of this committee and what this project means to them. And I think that it would be good to have that on record. But before we do that, I'll take any question or say anything further. We have a special guest with us. We have President Forrest Harris, who is the president of American Baptist College, as our guest today. American Baptist College, as you all know, is the college that gave us John Lewis. They were the one that invited him, gave him admission to their college, and that's how John Lewis got to Nashville. And it's only befitting that they're part of this conversation. They've issued a letter of support that I submitted with the ordinance, but I also invited President Forrest to say a few words about the late Congressman John Lewis, as well as ABC support of the project. So if you would unmute yourself. There you go, sir.
Yes. Thank you so much. Glad to be in this space with you this evening and very, very enthusiastically join you in your efforts to honor the legacy of Congressman John Robert Lewis and to move it forward wherein the city of Nashville can join American Baptist College in preserving his legacy. I had an opportunity to speak to the mayor and to the city during one of the mayor's press conferences. And I said in that presentation that because John Lewis began his public life here as a student at American Baptist College, and Nashville shaped him for the kind of career and future that he ended up fulfilling, it would be only right that Nashville does what it needs to do to preserve his legacy. And when I learned of your efforts to honor him by naming a street in his honor, Fifth Avenue, I think, is the stretch that you are considering. I thought that was a good beginning for how we as a city might work to preserve his legacy in posterity. So I am fully supportive of you. The nation, our world needs as much of our effort to hold before it the light and legacy of John Lewis and C.T. Vivian and so many others who shared in this city at the time. Our nation needs as much positive symbolism, as much education, as much solidarity, as much building of healing and community as we possibly can, as our nation continues to go through the pain and disruption and the racial animus and the whole issue of how our nation will preserve and make itself better, and the democracy for which John Lewis gave his life, and the hope that he had for nonviolent establishment of justice for all persons is at the center of what our democracy is struggling to do just tonight, today, in Louisville, all over the country. So this is a small effort on your part and our part at the college to preserve his legacy. And I hope we can do it in a way wherein we just do not allow it to be domesticated, and we do symbolic gestures as it relates to naming a street in his honor, but to dig deep into how we can educate a future generation about what not only their sacrifices mean, but how we ourselves can help achieve the dream for which they gave their lives. So thank you for inviting me into this space. I wish I could stay for your whole meeting, but I wanted to make an effort to support, and we sent a letter of support. John Lewis, many of you may have had the opportunity to meet him. I had many times to meet him and share with him. And even though the nation has picked up his good trouble, necessary trouble moniker, get in good trouble, good and necessary trouble. But John Lewis understood not only good and necessary trouble, but he understood that the only way to bring about sustainable change in our country is that you must dig deep into the qualities of love, merit, and wedded to justice, and how that might change the systems and structures that gave us slavery, that gave us segregation, that gave us the Jim Crow era. And because he dug deep in his own life with that love and justice, he now is a symbol for what we might strive to become. So I'm incredibly proud to be president of American Baptist College, our students here, and incredibly thankful to you for your efforts to honor him. We will be doing our work here on the college to preserve his legacy. We have assembled a group of people to think about a permanent Nashville historical archive and museum that not only honors the civil rights movement, but how Nashville can help educate future generations about what Nashville has become itself. And we're working on that project, and is in its embryonic stages, and we hope to inform you more about it. Thank you so much, and thank you for these words.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your kind words. And thank for all the work that you're doing as well. Like you rightly said, this is just a small step of what we intend to do. And in picking Fifth Avenue, I want to reiterate for the people that were not on the last calls that we pick it because of all the learning opportunities on that route, from Jefferson to Woolworth to the Greyhound for the Freedom Riders to the Nashville City Cemetery. There's a lot of learning opportunity, a lot of markers on the way that we can use to celebrate and to learn and to be able to emulate the life of the late Congressman John Lewis. So this is everything that you said we support. This is just one, but I think that we do need to honor him, like you said. So thank you, sir, for being here. Thank you for the letter. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. You have a nice evening.
You too.
All right, that's a great way to start. And so we don't have a whole lot of people on the call. I don't know if there's a couple on Facebook. Since we're here, I think what I want to do is I'm going to start. There's not a whole lot of us, and we have an hour, but I think that I want to give my committee members the opportunity to say a word or two on why they're on this committee, what this project meant to them, what they've been doing, what they've heard, and all of that stuff. And then we have a few people also that are on the call, or we can switch it around. We can hear from the people and then the committee members. Either one is fine. Actually, it's better. So if you're on the call and you have something to say, please raise your hand, because this is a community meeting. And so we'll let you voice your opinion and speak first. And then if we don't have any hand raised, we'll be switching with committee members. So if you're on the call and do want to say something in support, in opposition, comments, ideas, something that we did last week was also asking people how do they see us, some of the other ideas they have for celebrating John Lewis. I know we talk about we're going to have a match from Jefferson to Nashville City Cemetery. Somebody called me during the week and said she's looking into buy some trench coats and backpack for some young men to wear during that match because of the symbolism of what the late Congressman was wearing. And I think that was great. Some people suggested the idea of a mural along Fifth Avenue. And so there's so many ways we can do this. I'm hoping that this is a project that we all can come together. Once we finish the street naming, do the technical part, then we can all come up with ideas on how do we celebrate this? How do we take it further? How do we have this conversation? What else do we want to do? This is just a small step on the first step, like I said, but I'm hoping that it galvanizes us to be able to do more. So if you before I call on folks, we had two updates that I wanted to share with you. So last week, I went through some question and answers about some of the things people have been asking regarding the impact of the naming, what they have to change. For the sake of the people that were not on the call, I want to repeat that you do not have to change any of your documents other than your driver's license. That's the only official document you have to change. You don't have to change your passport, your title, your deed. You also have a year to change it. And so if the effective date is January 2021, then that gives you till January 2022 to change it. As a business owner, you can continue, or residents, continue to use that address for a year. You don't have to print new stationery. You don't have to do anything different. You can continue to do that for a year. And that reduces the burden. Someone had suggested that we allow businesses until the spring to make the change. And this fit into that because, like I said, if we start in January and you have to January of 2022, then those that wants to do it immediately can go ahead. Those that wants to wait till spring are welcome to wait until spring. And so you have that whole year to plan when you do want to make your change. I also want to let you know that you do not have to contact the post office to change your addresses. And just this week, we found out that NES will also change your address for you. You don't have to contact them. So we're looking for ways to streamline the processes. Anything that we can do through agencies that will make it easy on the people is what we're looking to. So you don't have to contact post office. You don't have to contact NES. We'll be looking at other agencies to make sure that we're streamlining it for as much as possible. Another question that was important was the election. A lot of people were worried that if we change now, does it impact people being able to vote in the election? Well, let me say that no, it does not, because the bill will not be effective until January 2021, and all the elections will be over by then. Another thing that I think is important for people to know is the cost. A lot of people have come to me and said, what does this mean? How much would this cost us? How much will they cost the city? And so in terms of individuals, there was a young lady that was on the call, the first call, that said something that was awesome. One, you have a year to change your stationery. You can continue to use them. So you do not need to go ahead and spend that money right now. And if you do change your stationery, you have to remember that this is a business expense, which you can deduct on your taxes. So the burden is less because you can write it off of your taxes. The other thing, in terms of the metro, what is the impact on metro? We found out this week from Public Works that when you do a street naming, most of the work is done in-house. So they have somebody that do all of that in-house. So the only cost to metro will be the cost of materials. And the fiscal note on this project is 11,000. That's all we're looking at. Now, it's possible because when they put the fiscal note together, I think we may still have Germantown, Salemtown in the street. So we need to go back and check if that 11,000 included Germantown, Salemtown. If it did, then that means that the cost will actually go down further than that. And so I think it's important, as we're talking about our city budget and spending money, I think 11,000 for such a legacy, for honoring a man that did so much, it is not something that it's not too much for us to spend, in my opinion. And if we're trying not to, we're just looking for excuses, and that excuses does not carry it does not mean anything. And so other than we don't want to be inconvenienced, other than anything else, there's no excuse at this point, in my opinion. So I wanted to share those with you. Again, we will continue as a committee to look for ways to make the transition easy. If there's an agency that we need to work with, we will do that as much as possible for you. And so at this point, if there's any other question, I welcome people to, or comments. If you raise your WebEx hand or if you wave, I can call you as part of the committee members to voice your opinion. If there are no committee members, then I will call, or community members, then I will call on committee members.
Council Lady, I think
Yes,
we have a question in the chat box.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank
From
you, Miss Rita. You're doing great. Yes, ma'am.
Leticia Modena. Her question is, she says, hi, everybody. What stretch are you considering to rename, or what, she says, would stretch. I think she means what stretch are you considering to rename? I would love my stretch to be renamed. I live in Germantown, Salemtown. That was the plan I read in the letter I got. Is that still the plan? Thank you.
Unfortunately, at this time, Germantown, Salemtown was taken off of the stretch. You're right, it was originally included. What we wanted to do was do all of Fifth Avenue North and South down the street, which included Germantown, Salemtown. But from our first meeting, we had some opposition, and we had people writing, and we had people saying that. And I think a lot of misinformation got out before we could get to the people. And people were worried that it would cost a lot of money and that they have to change their passport. And so people were just concerned, and we did not have the time to be able to address those concerns. By the time we got to it, all the misinformation came ahead of us. What eventually happened was that the Germantown historic board invited us. So Sam and I went to meet with them. We went through those question and answers. We tried to talk about it, but the board took a stand to say that they do not want us to include Germantown. That based on what they've heard, they do not think is a good idea for Germantown. Now, we decided to take off Germantown for now. And I keep saying for now, because that's what the residents representative indicated to us in their letter. And as a council member, you want to respect neighborhood organizations that are working on behalf of the neighborhood. And so we respect that stance. Now, what I will recommend down the road is that if Germantown, Salemtown wants to do something else, if Germantown, Salemtown wants to do a park, somebody said rename the Morgan Park, if they want to do their streets, if they can come together as a community and decide to do this, and they can work with Councilmember O'Connor. I'll be more than happy to be a part of that conversation, but they can work with Councilmember O'Connor to come up with what they think is the best way for Germantown to be involved, whether it's renaming the street or doing a park or all the other suggestions that the residents have. But I want to leave it to the members of Germantown, Salemtown to do that. Now, some of you live in Salemtown. And somebody said, you talked to the Germantown Historical Commission. What about Salemtown? Unfortunately, I cannot get to Salemtown without going to Germantown. So, that's the, I mean, so if Salemtown was in front and Salemtown said yes and Germantown said no, then we said let's stop at Salemtown. Unfortunately, the way the street is, we cannot get to Salemtown within Germantown. Also, in all honesty, one of the reasons why we wanted to do the entire street is also because of EMS concern about they want us to rename entire street and they don't want the EMS people to be confused when they send in an ambulance. And so we as a committee thought Jefferson Street as a big street is a good place. If we are going to stop, it's a good place to stop without trying to go into the little street in the community. But I would, thank you, Ms. Leticia. I would say that get in touch with your neighborhood association, whether it's Germantown or Salemtown, you all let them know what you want and have that conversation. It might make this, it might not make it might be something down the road. Let's not look at it as a one-time shot. We have the opportunity to do this and we might be able to do more. So we can add you later if that's what you all decide. But as of a week or 2 weeks ago, the board says no, they do not want it. And that's where we are. Any other question or thought? I don't see any and so I'm going to call on Greg. Greg is, interestingly, Greg and Susan had the same idea about renaming Fifth Avenue. And they contacted Freddie O'Connor and Vice Mayor Jim Schulman. And that was how I got connected with them. And it was like, oh, we got the same idea. Why don't we work together? So I'm going to ask Greg to say a few words. But before I do, I see that Ruth has raised her hand. And so I'm going to let Ruth have a comment or ask a question, and then I will call on Greg. Ruth, if you will unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you so much. I want to applaud you all for doing this, and I want to reiterate what was already said by Leticia, that I live in Salemtown, and I very much wanted this to happen. We did, I think, fall a little behind in terms of getting the info out to confront some of the opposition in a more detailed way. I think also that this is something that's extremely important to Salemtown because of the African-American history in this part of Fifth Avenue North. And there are still many African-American churches here. There are still African-Americans living here. And I don't think there was sufficient awareness on the part of people who live in Germantown that there didn't used to be until, the last 5 years or so. All of this presence here in Salemtown of affluence and people who look like me. And I don't think they realized that in Germantown, there were African-Americans, and that most people who lived outside of these neighborhoods considered it all one neighborhood and would just call it Germantown. So I think that there's a very rich history here that a lot of people are ignorant of, and I'm certainly not an expert in it, but I know that people, there was resistance by people in Germantown and Salemtown who moved here very recently and had no awareness or simply didn't care of the heritage in both of these communities. And I really, really hope that there is a way that if we cannot get consensus on renaming Fifth Avenue North through our neighborhoods, that we can do something more than just, I don't mean just, but something in addition to changing the name of Morgan Park. I think that would be important because you still see many, many people using Morgan Park, The field behind Morgan Park is very popular when we're not in the times of COVID, with very, very young African-American youth who are on football teams, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, white people using kickball, adults. It's a place that he would be seen. I also think it would be lovely if we could get somehow a presence, either a statue or a room at the recently opened museum here, at the soon-to-be open Library and Archives. If you had a John Lewis wing or a presentation about his life or a statue outside, something that put him in the public eye so that when young school kids went into the museum, for example, they would see him. I hope that there are many things that we can do, and that perhaps in the future, as people move in and out of this neighborhood and some of the speculation ends, we might be able to visit this issue of extending the street through Germantown and Salemtown. And thank you all.
Thank you, Ruth. I appreciate that. And again, please know that I don't want people to think this is the end of the conversation. We, at least from my perspective, number one, I want to respect the neighborhood association, because for them to take a vote and go through all of that, I want to believe that they're talking to their residents and that's what they heard. And so I want to believe that. And so that was part of it. I will say for openness and there was a survey, there was some knocking on doors that were done. And in that knocking of doors, the people that were knocking on the door spoke to 70 people. There's about 200 residents or houses or properties in Germantown. They spoke to 70, which I don't think is enough. But the 70 that they spoke to, if you look at that sample on that information, majority of the 70 said they don't want it in Germantown, which are the people that you heard from based on that survey. And that's what you have to go with. And so the others did not get the opportunity to say something, or maybe the people that said no, they don't have all the information, but we have to go with what I have. And I think for me, if the board did not jump in there, we might still continue. If I were going to go back on Saturday, open the community center or the field and keep talking. But as a representative, as a council person, you have to listen to the neighborhood. You have to listen to the people that you serve, and that motion is a major one. I say all of that to say that I'm not asking you all to give up. I'm deferring that decision to all of you. And we're tabling it for now. I think that's the word for it. And so Germantown people, maybe after COVID, when people can meet face to face, President Harris talked about some conversation that we need to have. Right? The committee feels like this project is one that is supposed to unite us. It's one supposed to bring everybody together. And we didn't want it to get ugly. But imagine what it would look like if in a gentrified Germantown that is mostly Caucasian, have John Lewis way. It will speak a lot, but it's not something that you forced. It's something that you have that conversation, what that means, and you let the people that lives there make that determination. So I'm asking all of you to go back. What does that mean? Now that we have the facts, now that we know the cost, now that we know the process, now that we know that you're not, it's not going to cost you everything. Now that we know you need a year, maybe then it's time to have a conversation. But I'm leaving that to the Germantown, Salemtown. I'm leaving it to Councilmember O'Connor, who is your district council member, who has a good relationship with all of you out there, to convene something. And you all can have that conversation. It doesn't have to be in the next 2-3 months. It doesn't even have to be in a year. Whenever you're ready to have that conversation as a town, as neighboring towns, Salemtown, Germantown, have that conversation. What does that mean? Do we want a statue? Do we want to change the park? Do we want, we want to put our name back on the street? I want to leave that conversation to all of you. And that's all we've done as a committee. All right. Now, I will say that, Ruth, and those that are also in support, please feel free on October 22nd. I think the Planning Commission meets at 4 o'clock. Feel free to still go there if you want to speak in support of the project. I think we still want to make sure that, at least for the Planning Commission, that we have some people there to speak in support as well. But I hope that, like President Harris said, this is a project that brings us together. And with that strong connection to Nashville, it makes sense from so many angles. it makes sense from a lot of angles. So, but thank you, Ruth, and thank you, Leticia. Greg, do you want to say something? I don't know if anybody else want to say something. I will let you speak. Oh, there's something in the chat, Miss Rita. Mr. Jeff Bissett, I hope I said it right. What is the mechanism for evaluating the opinions of the businesses and residents of Fifth Avenue? And so the mechanism is this Zoom meeting that we're doing, as well as the letter that went out. So in the proposed change, and I'll say this again because we have different people on the Zoom call. The process for changing a street name or rezoning starts when you file the ordinance with the city. What the ordinance does, for anybody that knows how the council works, is just to start the conversation. We're not allowed to talk about anything outside of meeting because of sunshine law. So in order for us to be able to have a conversation, we have to file that. So our first filing, we don't have any conversation. It's on the second filing that the conversation starts. So at that point, what we did as a committee was say that, okay, let's now set up these 3 Zoom meetings and allow people to come in and voice their opinion. People have also received letters from the Planning Commission. And so they have the opportunity to write to the Planning Commission. They have the opportunity to come to any of these Zoom meetings. They also have the opportunity to go on October 22nd. Now, we've heard from some of them directly, and people are emailing me, and we have letters of support from the big ones that we've attached to the ordinance. But every day people are emailing and saying I'm in support, or they can talk to the commission, or they can come on this. The 3 Zoom meetings were supposed to do this. We've been advertising it. We did different time slot so that people can check their schedules, 4, 5, and 6 o'clock, to allow people to be able to adjust their schedule to come. So these are the opportunities that folks have. Since this is ending today, people should still feel free to email. We have an email address set up for this, johnlewisway@gmail.com, or they can email zulfat.swara@nashville.gov. And so, thank you. Oh, the other thing I also need to say is that we have Sam Reed and Tom Turner and Marie and Rita. Rita works for the chamber, Marie works for the downtown development. And so we have a lot of people on our board that actually work with businesses that are also talking to people on our behalf. I spoke to Harry Allen, who is a good friend of mine, who knows some businesses on Fifth Avenue, to go and talk to them. I also talked to Joe Woolley, who is the president of the LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce. They have some businesses on that road for Joe to be able to talk to them. So we're reaching out to poll them and to talk to them in addition to all of this, because we do want to make sure that people know. More than anything, I think for me, it's clarifying all those misinformation. I think when misinformation gets out, people get hyped, and the negative usually gets more traction. And so if we can stay ahead of it and be able to say, yes, you have a business, but please know that you have until January 2022. You can use your stationery. If you're still using the old one, the post office is going to honor it. I think those are important information for people to know. And I think a lot of people did not know that. So we'll keep getting that out as much as we can. Yes, ma'am. Miss Ruth. Ruth, were you going to say something?
No, okay, now it's working. I just
Technology.
wanted to add that I think that it would be important down the road that it be communicated to some members in and Salem Town that this is actually an opportunity to get more people further into our neighborhoods. With the opening of the Museum of African American Music, when that happens soon, I hope, I think that having that John Lewis Way all the way down might even encourage the free city bus, the Metro bus. I can't remember. It used to be the green route that would come down here. To come even further, as it stands now, they drop you off and at the farmer's market, and then you have to cross the street. And many people will just go to Silo or one of the restaurants there that used to be open. But I think this would bring more people, if we had the bus coming further down, to even come to the businesses. I mean, 100 yards from us, there are 4 corners that are commercial and 2 of them are built on. There are businesses as well. It would bring people down further into our neighborhoods to 4th, to 3rd, to 6th, to 7th. So I think that this could be a huge win for businesses as well
Yes.
in Germantown and Salem Town. And perhaps we just all need to do a better job, those who have contacts in businesses, to talk about the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages of having to change your address online. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And I was thinking about that. One of the things that we talk about, and when Professor Gloria McKissick was in here, she's one of the members, Fisk University, that did the sitting, right? And she's part of the Civil Rights Association. And she said they're on board. But one of the things she talks about is that she used to do tours all the time. And imagine we're thinking about placing markers along the line through Fifth Avenue for different stops and different places. We're planning to be able to do tours for people to stop at Woolworth, learn something, stop at the Greyhound bus, learn something, stop at Ryman. There's a connection to John Lewis at the Ryman Auditorium. And these are things that people don't know about. And so when you have all these markers on the way and you have people doing tours throughout the year, this is actually good exposure for the businesses that are on that route. Because if I'm taking a tour and I'm going to stop at Ryman, I'm going to stop at Woodworth, there might be an art gallery while I'm walking down the street, and I'm going to go in and say, oh, what's happening here? There will be a restaurant on that route that I'm going to stop and say, oh, I'm too tired, let me get something to drink. And so I think it will bring exposure to those businesses. And I think that's why for those of us that are supporting it, and as we talk this up, we need to let people know what this does in terms of bringing us together, but also it's not as inconvenient as people think. And then the idea of it could actually open up more people for businesses, tourists coming and doing a whole tour down the road. I think it would be good for business. And so that's the way that I was thinking about it this morning. Like, hey, look at that. Because I would stop to see a store if I'm walking down the street. And I think a lot of people, now that we've made that connection that some of us, I did not know about the Ryman, right? And that you receive an award on the stage of the Ryman. That came about after we started this committee. Then Assessor Wheeler told us about the Greyhound buses on Fifth Avenue. Talk about the Freedom Riders. So there's so many, everybody talks about Woolworth, but there's so much on that route. And I think it will bring a lot of exposure, a lot of things to the businesses there. So I think we just need to keep answering people and keep giving them that information. So Greg. Will you unmute? There you go.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Just very quickly, I was sitting one night right after John Lewis died, and then I watched the documentary about him, and jumped on Facebook and just put out there, let's rename Fifth Avenue in honor of John Lewis. And 2 weeks later, or a week and a half later, my friend Susan Huggins and I decided we were going to try to move this forward, and found out that the minority caucus of the council was already a half a step ahead of us. So we got in lockstep with the minority caucus and created this group. And, you know, John Lewis is a national hero whose pathway started in this city. And it's an amazing story, and his is an amazing story, but Nashville has a big, big role in the story of John Lewis. So that's why I wanted to rename Fifth Avenue. And I believe that it will honor his legacy and will be a teaching moment for years and years to come about civil justice and civil rights and good trouble.
Thank you, Greg. Rita.
Good evening, everybody. So Rita McDonald, as Council Lady said, I'm with the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce. But 2 things. The first reason why I said yes, which was an easy yes to join this committee, was because of my utmost respect for Council Lady Zulfat. I think that she is an incredible leader. And so that's number 1. So that was an easy yes. And the other answer why I said yes is because it's a no-brainer to me. My husband and I both are fans of Representative John Lewis. We've, followed him for many, many years. And as Greg just said, he's a national hero and his roots were right here in Nashville. I mean, this is an opportunity for us to take advantage of this because, duh, he was here. He was at Woolworths, at the counters. I mean, so I just think that it's an incredible opportunity and I'm just honored to be a part of this committee.
Thank you. Marie.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Marie Sewing, and I'm actually with the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation. And just like Rita said, when I was asked, no brainer for me too, because I'm not from Nashville, but having lived here over 25 years and learning the history here, the incredible history, I just feel so proud that Representative Lewis, his civil rights and training took place right here in Music City. That he used those skills and inspiration that he gained while he was here at American Baptist College and Fisk University. And he took that out into the world and spent the rest of his life being an advocate for social justice. And, not just for the African-American community, for everyone, for humans. And so what a public and permanent way to honor his legacy. I just feel like this is something that should bring us all together and can bring us all together. And so I'm just very proud to be a part of this effort. And I can tell you, in working with people outside of Nashville, because that's what we do, we bring conventions and meetings and visitors here. This is just be a wonderful way to show the world how Nashville continues to be open, warm, welcoming to all communities. So proud to be part of this effort.
Vivian.
Hello, everyone. I just saw the message to unmute. I was doing two things at one time. Want to first say thank you for allowing me to be on this committee, Council Lady Zulfat, and meeting some very incredible people that's on this committee. I don't know the age of everyone here online, but let me just say this. I am a product of the civil rights movement. I was not there for the movement. I was not there for the marches, but I'm a product of it. And I am definitely representation of what people fought for and wanted to see in their future. So it was, without a doubt, to be on this committee was more of an honor than anything else. But I also wanted to assist Council Lady and the other members with being able to get the information that's needed and necessary to navigate through some of the Metro Council or the Metro process of getting this done, because I've done street name changes and I've also been a part of the state of Tennessee when we've implemented area codes across the state, 931, 865, 731, so many of them, and understood what was always the pushback of many people in the various community, whether it be in the inner city or be in the rural area. When it comes to John Lewis, I appreciate all that he has done to make opportunities for me and people who look like me and people who do not look like me, because like Rita just stated, or Maria just stated, he worked for everyone. Of course, I was all for the naming of Salem Town as well as Germantown. I still feel that that's a great place to start, but I want to honor the Council Lady and her wishes and where she wants to go in reference to this. I'm just glad that she's allowed me to be on this journey. So with that being said, my reason for being here is to support Council Lady Zulfat and to be able to support the community in reference to getting this done. But I'm on board to seeing some things like a park being done in reference to Mr. Lewis or something of that nature that will stand as an icon in the community of the neighborhoods, because he was all about Fair Housing Act. That's all of him, and so much more than just desegregating lunch counters and buses, seats on the buses and what have you. So this is a great start. And I think this is a wonderful way of exemplifying his legacy in every way. So thank you for allowing me to be on this committee. And I wish everyone the greatest in reference to how they can honor him as well in those areas that's where the street will not be in his name.
Thank you. Sam.
Thank you, Council Lady. Appreciate that. Well, I'm obviously honored to be part of this group, and you know, for me, when I was asked to be a part of it, it just immediately clicked. I mean, my first encounter with Representative Lewis was when I was working for Representative Jim Cooper in DC, and in about 08 through 12, I was there, and there was a reverence for Congressman Lewis that was just different than the way everybody else was treated up there. And I think a respect from, you know, folks on both sides of the aisle. He was a man with strong opinions and feelings and convictions about things, but he did it in a way that was extraordinarily respectful while being unwavering. And you know, I think look no further than his funeral this year, when you know, you had both President Barack Obama and George W. Bush both show up to give tribute to him. It's just the kind of man he was. And for me, in my dealings with this committee, I've been reaching out to a lot of the area businesses, and you know, I can tell you without naming names, the folks that are sort of in charge of these businesses don't all have the same political opinions, right? Some of them are on the left, some of them are on the right, but every single one of them I approached recognized that this was an honor, that this was a man who was, you know, sort of worthy of bestowing this honor upon. And so I'm just really proud to be a part of it. Getting to work with Councilor Suara and the rest of the committee has just been a joy. And I'm looking forward to sort of seeing this through and celebrating this with the rest of the group once we get to the renaming phase.
Thank you. I saw Council Lady Quanti Tunes, but I think she may have drop off. So Miss Ellen, please pardon me, for somebody whose name is always messed up. That's why I go with Z a lot of the times, because I tell people, call me Z, because you might be shy that you might mispronounce my name, and then you don't want to talk to me because you're so worried about how the names come out. So just call me Z. Let's keep it moving. I think building the relationship is more important. So Miss Ellen, I know you joined early before everyone else, and I see that you're back on. Do you have something to say? I would like to unmute you. If you will unmute yourself, yes, thank you.
You're
welcome.
But I want to say I thought the meeting last week and today, but last week I was really impressed the way you brought everyone in, and you really you made me feel welcome to the group. And like when you were saying this is a joyous thing, not a divisive thing and everything, I thought you handled it really beautifully. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, no, I'm fine. I sent a message about should you know, have the Avenue versus Way, and just because we got first, you know, 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue, 4th Avenue, John Lewis Avenue, 6th Avenue, you know, I had thought about if that would make it easier to navigate that type of thing. But I don't know if you've already, you know, gone through all those iterations. But no, we in Germantown, we've already met with some other ideas of things to do. So I'm excited.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining. I appreciate that. I think we started with Way, and we've been doing Way, and the ordinance was filed with Way, and everything, all the document attached to it is Way. But that does not mean that I'll talk to the committee and see if they have any desire to change it. The only problem sometimes with Avenue is people might want to spell it out. We don't want it to be too long on the sign, because we do want to keep the representative, by the way. That was the committee's vote to keep the representative. So if you keep representative and you have to spell out avenue, you get into long street name. Now, I will tell people that a lot of people are worried that if you put representative, it's too long. And my answer is that that is the official name. That's what's going to be on the street. But if you put John Lewis on your address, it will get to you. The post office will know it's coming to your house because there's no other John Lewis, at least for now. At least for now. So I wanted to clarify that to folks. So yes, Greg. Yes, Greg, you can unmute.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Thank you. The question about John Lewis Avenue versus John Lewis Way, there's a play on words with way. And you know, it's John Lewis's way of civil justice and civil rights. That's the reason that we had the idea for way versus just John Lewis Avenue, is to play on the word of let's live our lives in this city the John Lewis way.
I don't know how we came up with that in the caucus, but I love that. I mean, I just thought it sounded great when we were suggested, but I think what Greg said makes a lot of sense, that we're being intentional in all of this. And so there is a, thank you. I appreciate that. So we'll keep the way because we want to make sure that we're doing things the John Lewis way. Ms. Bedell, you want to say something, ma'am? Yes, ma'am. Oh, I think your computer volume. Oh, I do not like technology. You are on mute, but I think your computer volume is off or something. I remember the last time. And I wish I could tell you what button that is. I cannot hear her. I was gonna give her a call and maybe even put her on. Let me see if I can do that. And then while I'm getting her, Ron Ogan is on the call. Ron is the president of the Historic Germantown Neighborhood Association. Ron, I did not mean to put you on the spot, but I'm asking everyone to say something. And so if you would like to say a word while I'm getting Ms. Badel, we'll appreciate it. And thanks for being on all the call, by the way. I know you've been to all three.
No, we appreciate it very much. Yeah, I had the dubious honor of telling you that the Germantown board opposed the renaming of the street from up north of Jefferson, but there are other things. Personally, from my perspective, I really appreciate all that you all have done, and do that. There are a couple of things I would point out that there are additional costs to changing this, and they're minor, but they're you have to change your driver's license, and that's going to cost, I think, $8 or something. Your car registration, you have to do those. So there are some minor things there, and but anyway, they're additional costs. So I want to point those out. There are other things that we currently are looking at from the standpoint of from Germantown perspective, and one of them. Well, there was a meeting last night, and I have not heard what the result was, but it's working with a gentleman named Alan McGuire, who is the sculptor, and he is very interested in doing something with regard to John Lewis, and that was something we had talked with him about, as well as some long story, but things aren't happening right now anyway down the road. But thank you very much. We appreciate this and listening to it. And Ms. Hill, I appreciate your comments, and we will be talking to some folks there. So.
Thank you, Ron. And one of the reasons why I wanted Ron to speak, because I know that he was the one that sent me the letter, and I know that he's been on all the calls. I wanted him to be able to say something. And I wanted to make sure that, I mean, I'm reiterating that this is based on what the board perceived, that all of you needs to go talk to your board. But more than anything, I'm glad that I actually is talking about some of the steps that Germantown is taking to be a part of this. And I think that's good information to know. And so I will recommend those of you that are in Germantown, Salem Town, talk to your neighborhood association. There might be some other efforts going on, and you can support that. You should support that. And who knows, maybe you'll come back and say, change the street. There is cost attached, but it's very minimal. It's very minimal cost. It's not a whole lot. But if you do a statue, I think whatever you will come to, the fact that you're talking about doing something, it still falls within part of what this committee is trying to do, trying to bring the whole community together. I did not want this to turn into a battle. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to honor John Lewis, and we want to do it in a way that brings us together. And so it really warms my heart that there is ongoing conversation about things that will be happening in Germantown, Salem Town. I'm glad to know that, and I'm glad everybody hears that too. Yes, Ron.
Well, just one more comment. One of the things that I personally was very interested in, and we had talked about, was, and this again doesn't affect Fifth Avenue North, but it's the putting something in the neighborhood of like a John Lewis Trail, which would go actually all the way down from the cemetery up through Fifth Avenue, and then take a left at Jefferson and go through Fisk, Meharry, and the other university that John Lewis attended, because those were, and then with plaques on those at various stations, like at, obviously at Woolworths, but there were several things in there that, and I don't know if that would conflict with John Lewis Way, but there are, historical things that along Jefferson that are tremendously valuable to his legacy and the rest of the world.
Yeah. Yes, I think that one of the reasons why we wanted to intersect with Jefferson was because of that history that ties to Jefferson. And I know that there will be other things that will be happening on Jefferson Street later. I can say that there is conversation on renaming Adley Park after the Freedom Riders. I think that's public information, and they're working on it. And so there might be some other things that is going on that would happen with Jefferson Street. And so if that happens ultimately somewhere down the road, then you can have people coming down that way, and then you have people coming on Fifth. It could be a whole civil rights trail right there. But I'm excited about all the suggestions. Again, I cannot name all of Nashville John Lewis Way, but I do think that Fifth Avenue is a great place to start because of all that connection. And let's just take that. So so I appreciate all your support, Ron, even though Germantown and Salem Town is out of it for now, for all the reasons that your residents shared with you. I will appreciate that you all continue to support the rest of the way and keep talking about why we all need to honor John Lewis. I think I need everyone to be able to support that. And then as you guys come up with the way that you want to honor John Lewis, then we want to come and support that. And I think that's what John Lewis will want. All of us working together, desegregated, not on racial lines or street lines. How do we at this time in our history continue to work together? I will say things that John Lewis fought for, we're still fighting today. We saw what happened in Kentucky. Police brutality was one of the things that he spoke against and fought against and was beaten up for. And so there's so many things. Racial issues is still here among us. And so I'm hoping that let's start with this renaming. Let us kumbaya and hold hands and get this done. And then let us think about other ways that we need to get into deep down some serious conversations about how do we treat each other? How do we become a better society? Miss Ruth, I'll let you say something. I want to make sure that I called everybody. Miss Roseanne is on the call. Miss Rosie works with the council office. Anybody that is on council knows Miss Rosie. She has more power than the mayor, by the way. And so you need anything done, you call Miss Rosie. So Miss Rosie, if you want to say something, I'll give you a minute, and then I'll let Miss Ruth say something so that we can end on time. She helped facilitate and help us get all this together, but we're talking about our community. And I think it's also important that we have our staff that are helping us make things happen. She's spending our evening to help us, and I know she has her own thoughts. And so, Miss Rosie, if you're able to say something, I hate putting you on the spot. If you want to, if you don't want to, that's fine. But I'm glad. I want to acknowledge you for all your help in getting us this far. I know that you've been a tremendous help to me and to the committee. Same thing goes with Ms. Vivian's staff. I think we should say the assessor property staff did an incredible job of getting us the list of all the property owners. They gave us a great start. I want to acknowledge the people in public works for sending out the letter. It was a lot of letters to mail, but they've been working with us. And then when we change your mind and change it back, and then I call them. And so John Cooper with the council office, everybody's been very great. Tim Walker is a member of this committee, but Tim also is part of the historical commission, and the historical commission has already done their study about why there's nothing historically that prevents us from naming Fifth Avenue, but is people got to it immediately. I want to thank all my committee members. I think you guys are movers and shakers. I think the idea to put all of you together was a good one. I don't know who came up with it. But I think that having all of you have moved us forward a lot. And I think there's so much more that we can do together. So, Ms. Ruth, do you want to say something? Because I need to close it out, or you're good?
That I don't feel that be a trail that includes Jefferson because it has its own history. It's a historic district, if you will, of its own. But what Ron just said offered another idea, another way beyond the statue to honor Rep. Lewis, and that would be, I don't know how it could be done, Zulfat, but who in Metro deals with naming greenways? Because we also have greenways in Germantown and all throughout this area. And that would be one, you know, you may not see the statue, you may not see the wing in the library and archives, the John Lewis wing, but there are a lot of people in Germantown and Salemtown who go on the greenways here by bike and by foot. So it's another way of reaching people. I don't know who in Metro deals with that, but when Ron mentioned the idea of a trail, I interpreted it literally as a trail.
That's an awesome idea. Again, Salemtown, make all the decision about Salemtown, Germantown. And I think that I will let you make it with your district council member. I will support whatever you all wants to do. I will be there for the meetings. I will find out information that I need to find out. But I'll let you all do that. Ms. Bedeli. Oh, yes, we can hear you now. You want to try again? Oh, no, we cannot. Love you. I'm planning to come to Germantown to a garden, and we're going to talk about Nigeria. We have some connections, so she live in Nigeria, and I'm going to come down there and see all of you. You're not getting rid of me so easily, so don't worry. So thank you all for joining. Continue to support it. Continue to speak up for it. Continue to those misinformation, we have to counter it with information, continue reaching out to the people that are on the street and continue to get support for it. And once we get this done, we'll come back again and talk about how do we celebrate this? What does the trail look like? What does the tour look like? What are we doing? And then we'll come back and have that conversation. So thank you all so much for spending your time with us. Thank you for your support. I hope you all have a nice evening. Thank you.